What is a Mary Sue? And how do you avoid writing one? Well, a Mary Sue, or a Gary Stu for males, is relatively hard to define since there is no real solid definition for it. It's more of a feeling. You've probably seen it before. There's a main character who is generic in both looks and their personality to be as relatable as possible, but they're also perfect in every way. Wherever they go, they're almost instantly loved by everybody around them. Everybody, of course, except the evil bad guy, who must either repent from their evil misdeeds and absolutely love the main character by the end of the story, or die. And as the main character goes through the story, they're quickly and easily able to overcome whatever challenges come their way, no matter how difficult or impossible they are to everyone else. Because they're awesome. And of course at the end, they beat the bad guy and save the world. What you just heard was basically the epitome of Mary Sue-ness, and generally the closer your character is to that, the more they feel like a Mary Sue. They are unrealistically perfect, everything is easy because they're awesome, and everybody loves them except for the bad guy. Now this is a bad thing for obvious reasons. It's boring, it's predictable, and it's literally just wish fulfillment. Now most people say that the problem here is that the character is too perfect, that they're overpowered and have no flaws, and that obviously the best way to solve this is to give them flaws. And while I agree that this is a good solution, I also think it's sort of missing the point, because I still think that characters who are overpowered or are genuinely good people who have no flaws can still work and be interesting. After all, if the real problem is that they're too powerful or that they are too good of a person, why do characters like Mary Poppins and Superman work? I don't want to limit writers into thinking that they can't write powerful characters or genuinely good people, especially if that's the main point of your story. Not every character has to be morally grey or a flawed person. You can still make them interesting. And this is because what makes a character feel like a Mary Sue, I believe, has less to do with the character and has more to do with the outside situations surrounding the character. Because I believe that characters can't be seen from a vacuum and be judged that way, but it needs to be seen from the whole story perspective and how they contribute to that story. So I think that if you do want to write these type of characters, there are two main questions that you should consider. What is the character's purpose in the story, and where is the challenge? Why does this character exist in the first place? What do they contribute to the story and its themes? Are they there to learn a lesson? Perhaps they're there to act as a role model and others could change because of them. Or maybe they could take a darker turn and it could turn into a cautionary tale. This can go in so many different directions, but when it comes to Mary Sue's, usually you just see one thing. They just exist to show off how awesome they are. Now, it's okay for a writer to show off how awesome a character is. This generally works better at the start, but if it takes over the whole story, then it becomes a problem. It needs to be for a reason that serves a purpose in the story. Now let's go to Mary Poppins. Her purpose is to teach the children while bringing them fun at the same time, and push Mr. Banks towards his character arc to become a better father. In this situation, it's not all about Mary Poppins, but more about the impact she brings into the lives of others. And then there's also Superman. Now, his story is a bit more simple. His story is one of a classic good versus evil, and he stands as a symbol of hope. Now, the theme specifically changes depending on what movie he's in, but this is generally what he stands for. But even though this is thematically simple, this works because of the second question. Where is the challenge? Consider why they're being put into the situations they're being put into. Now, as I said before, I don't think the real problem is that Mary Sue characters have amazing skills or are good at doing what they do. I believe the real problem is that the only situations that they do go through are ones that they already know how to solve. So what's the point? Why put a character in a situation that's easy for them throughout the entire story? It doesn't do anything. Well, as mentioned before, it's to make them look as good as possible, which ironically enough makes us like them less. They don't feel real since the universe is nothing but good to them, and we know that's not how the world works. So find a challenge. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but there still needs to be a challenge there in some way. So going back to Superman, there's some of the obvious ones like kryptonite and villains who are just as strong as him or stronger, but I think the main things that are put at stake are the people he cares about. This is why I think that his relationship with Lois is emphasized so much. This is so that when Lois Lois is put in danger, there's actual stakes, because even though Superman is invincible, we all know that Lois isn't. Now the question revolves not whether Superman will survive, but whether he'll be able to save her in time. And it's not just Lois, it's the weight of the entire world that he's trying to carry, and he can't save everyone. This is where much of Superman's conflict is coming from. But it also doesn't need to be the character in question who needs to be challenged. When we go back to Mary Poppins, she's the one who's bringing the challenge. Really, the main character of the story is Mr. Banks. He's the one who's constantly being challenged throughout the movie, and it's because of her that he eventually changes. But what matters here is that the challenge is there to drive the story forward, and now it feels like it has a point. And most importantly, it feels like an actual story and not just a power fantasy. So in conclusion, I don't think the core of the problem is that the characters are good people or are insanely powerful. There are plenty of characters that are just good people or are extremely powerful but still interesting. I think the real problem is that the writer is unwilling to challenge the characters in any meaningful way and only wants to put them in situations that are easy for them. And the probable reason for this is that most Mary Sues are self-inserts and the writer wants to live out a fantasy, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but keep in mind that while it may be fun to write, to most people it is not fun to watch. And if you feel like a character is too much of a Mary Sue, but you don't want to make them less powerful or give them flaws, you can make them feel less Mary Sue-ish by making their character have thematic relevance and by making it so that there's still a meaningful challenge. My name is Brandon Riley, and that is how I think you can avoid writing a Mary Sue. Thanks for watching.